Раз. Раз. Второй канал. Второй канал. Здравствуйте, второй канал. Второй канал. Английский.
So, we are about to start. I hope last people are arriving from another hall. And if you need translation, you can get the headphones down there. So there will be mixed English and Russian language used probably during the presentation. And this is almost, that's it. So if you're ready, just have your seats. And we are about to depart. So we are here to discuss e-governance related topics in Eurasian region, and we're going to have, I very much hope, a very good discussion today, as we have 4 speakers here in Samarkand and 1 speaker online. So we have here Shakhboz Akhmedov, who is Senior Research Fellow, Knowledge and Research Networking in CAREC Institute, and hopefully you will define us what kind of institute it is. We have here Anastasia Kalinina, who is co-founder and CIO of Restate Foundation, and we are very curious to learn more what it is. We have here Davit Nadirashvili, who is chairman in the Digital Governance Agency in Georgia. And we have here our local host, Mr. Oleg Pekos, who is First Deputy Minister in the Ministry of Development of Information Technologies and Communication in Uzbekistan. And we have online Olga Tumuruc, Director of the Electronic Governance Agency of Republic of Moldova. Unfortunately, we do not have here Ukrainian representatives. We were inviting them, but unfortunately, because of Russian aggression and situation in Ukraine, they were not able to join us today, but they do great work also during the war. So, but let us start. A couple of housekeeping remarks. I give you all 5 minutes for introduction, and maybe, Shakhboz, I give you 7 minutes because you need to cover whole region. And after we will have good discussion. We start from Shakhboz, and Oleg will follow, as Oleg has some other duties for today during the ICT week. But Shakhboz, floor is yours. What you are doing, and also what is your insight about the developments in this region. Please use the microphone also. It should work.
All right. Wonderful good afternoon to everyone. Well, my name is Shakhboz Akhmedov. I'm a senior research officer at the CAREC Institute. CAREC means Central Asian Regional Economic Cooperation Institute. And we focus on 11 countries, basically, so 5 Central Asian countries, Afghanistan, China, Mongolia, Azerbaijan, and Georgia. And digitalization is perhaps not my so-called piece of cake, yeah, but I happen to be here today to present our recent research report. So mostly based on those findings, what we have done throughout the research over the last 2 years on digital gap in the CAREC region, so across these 11 countries. And basically our institution is a research institution. It's not an IT company, but rather we focus on analyzing how governments can make robust public policies to support different sectors of economy, including including connectivity, which is digitalization is part of connectivity. And besides this, we have, of course, cross-border cooperation and cross-border economic corridors, knowledge corridors, economic and financial stability, regional infrastructure, etc. So we mostly focus on how to boost regional cooperation and regional integration in the CAREC region. And my personally, I'm much involved in environmental matters because we have one dimension that we focus on water and agriculture. And I'm just coordinating the work of a climate task force in all environment-related projects. So again, on agriculture, biodiversity, climate adaptation, and I'll be sharing some words about how, based on actually my previous experience, and I'm here to also promote a little bit the fact that IT or digitalization is much beyond, or must go beyond, IT technologies and IT cooperation or fintech, but it's more about perhaps solving most acute problems of our society. So one of them here in Uzbekistan, in Central Asia, it's climate change matters, yeah, or agriculture. So building up agriculture value chains, how technologies could help in doing that, or in addressing or in accelerating climate adaptation of population, in how governments can play a role in that, in how to cooperate cross-sectoral, across different sectors of the economy and also across the different levels of the government, yeah, which is missing. digitalization or digital infrastructure can be there, but if there is no coordination among agencies, we have a public agency representative here today, perhaps he might disagree with me, but yet I think also agrees to certain points that coordination is really a big issue in many governments, also in centralization governments, that really hinders certain developments, not only, again, digitalization process. This is very brief introduction from my side. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Shakhboz. And don't switch it off. Yes. Yeah. But let's move next to Deputy Minister Oleg Pekos. And I know all the countries in the region have done really marvelous job to digitalize government services, digitalize society broader. And it was also visible in the United Nations e-government development index, where most of the countries in the region were making remarkable progress, not only in ranking, but also content-wise. And I think we should be all here very happy about it, because Shakhboz just mentioned that you are discussing also and researching about water resources, but sometimes it's said that data is new oil for the economy. I should say data and digital connections is new water also for the Central Asian region, where water is a really remarkable issue also. But Oleg, what are the main challenges you are facing here to develop digital government in Uzbekistan, and what are your success stories, and what are the next targets?
Thank you so much. If it's possible, I will speak Russian, because it's more simple. Yeah, thank you. Прежде всего, дорогой Ханнес, я бы хотел поблагодарить вас за сотрудничество в рамках электронного правительства, в рамках совместной рабочей группы. Мы посетили Эстонию в этом году. Мы уже на протяжении больше года работаем совместно, обмениваемся опытом. И вот эта поездка, и в целом работа, и те спикеры, которые приезжают нам по обмену в рамках вашей программы, они помогли как раз-таки подняться на те 18 позиций, которые вы сказали, потому что это совместная работа, командная работа. И очень важно здесь не искать каждому свой путь, а оптимально выбрать правильный по направлению и идти по пути наименьшему сопротивлению. Поэтому мы выбрали наилучшие практики и, конечно же, двигаемся. Я надеюсь, что наше дальнейшее сотрудничество оно будет больше и больше приносить успехов. Еще нужно очень много сделать. Нельзя сказать, что мы какую-то часть уже закончили. Основные приоритеты – это, конечно же, инфраструктура. Министерство здесь и как регулятор, и как непосредственно исполнитель данной системы. Мы должны довести до каждой точки Республики Узбекистан высокоскоростной интернет. Очень приятно, что вот сегодня в рамках ICT Week мы находились в Самарканде, и 5G базовые станции там уже установлены, работают достаточно хорошо. Сервисы, более 700 мегабит в секунду скорость. Это первое, очень важный компонент электронного правительства – это Human Capital. Здесь огромная работа ведется по поручению главы государства, постоянно под пристальным вниманием создания IT-парков, IT-центров. В каждом районе Республики Узбекистан создан IT-центр. 3 университета плюс 1 Digital University с компанией PAM, который открылся в этом году. То есть мы идем очень хорошими темпами. Конечно же, хочется всегда быстрее. Мы четко видим, куда идем и что нужно сделать. А если говорить про основные задачи, на мой взгляд, электронное правительство должно быть настолько простым, чтобы каждый гражданин хотел заходить в приложение, в связи с чем с 1 ноября текущего года мы предоставляем government-сервисы для всех аплетов, мобильных операторов, платежных систем. Всем, кому удобно, мы отдаем инструменты, API. И человек, как правило, уже 99% граждан Республики Узбекистан, достигших совершеннолетия, они пользуются платежными сервисами. Они привыкли к интерфейсу. Мы не хотим переучивать их, к примеру, на другой интерфейс, но мы дополнительно поставляем возможность получать госуслуги через привычные им приложения в том числе. И, конечно, надо подсветить обязательно, что доступ к межведомственной интеграционной платформе он предоставляется также и коммерческим организациям с 1 ноября. И очень важно, как вы сказали, данные – это как нефть, и даже лучше. И мы будем разговаривать об этом лет через 15, я надеюсь, также вместе друг с другом, и будем обсуждать, насколько же все-таки это мы были правы сегодня. Вот, если коротко, то так. Спасибо.
Спасибо, Oleg. So let's move further to Moldova. Olga, we see you. I hope you hear us also. So what are the biggest challenges in Moldova and how the things are going there? You have made a remarkable progress in digital government development already during last 10 or 12 years, I guess. So what are the next challenges and where it has taken you already?
Yeah, hello everyone. First of all, thank you, Hannes, for the question. But before that, I would first like to thank you for inviting the Republic of Moldova at the Strategy, States and IT Eurasian Forum. It is my honor to represent my country at this event, even if remotely, but in any way, it is an opportunity for us to highlight our achievements in the field of e-governance. Of course, we are eager to share with you the challenges we've met developing the e-gov services. But before that, I would like just to mention a few words about the background of Moldova e-governance agency, just to better understand our journey. Well, since the very first day e-governance agency was created, we were directing our efforts for service improvement. And for us, this is one of the cornerstones of digital transformation and maybe the best use case for technology and innovation. In our context, service provision is a very broad concept, and it means not only public electronic services, but also digital tools for digitization of whole of the public administration and of the country. In this context, our agency works to help the government, businesses, academia to increase efficiency, to optimize processes, to encourage internal collaboration in order to become more agile, we as individuals and we as a country. Our main fields of intervention and activities are developing and continuous improvement of a resilient e-governance ecosystem, applying ICT and innovation for modernization of public services, implementation of national interoperability framework, going with the digitalization at the local level, and ensuring the consistency of the compliance of information system developed within the public sector through evaluation and coordination and intelligent IT investment in the government. In brief, we bring leading technologies into the government, we rethink processes, we modernize the legal framework to address the digitalization barriers, and improve services, make them work for the benefit of the citizen. Coming back to the challenges that we've met when developing e-government services, I shall start with the fact that in Moldova, e-governance story started back in 2010, indeed, when our government understood that using technology in organizing public administration would bring value and would boost innovation, would help improve the way we are interacting with our citizens, and would make more efficient the service provision process. In this regard, a policy document was approved and a very ambitious objective was set by 2020 to have all public services available online. As mentioned, this was a very ambitious objective for us, because we were facing some important facts in order to be considered. Thus, even at that point in time, we had some important information resources available, like the State Register of Population, legal entities, real estate, transport, driver's licenses, registry, social insurance, and so on and so forth. We also were having a PKI infrastructure in place and the tools for advanced qualified signature. Anyway, we were still lacking e-services due to limited resources in the public sector, financial resources, but more important, the human capital, the human resources. And still it is a challenge nowadays, 10 years later. This is why we decided in favor of a centralized approach when considering e-services delivery model. What this means in our case, it means that the government designed and built an ecosystem, the e-government ecosystem, that is composed of a number of generic services, verticals, or building blocks that are now functional and are available as microservices ready to use when starting the development process of an e-service. So in order to address the human capital challenge, basically the unavailability of resources that could be dedicated to complex development process, with the support of World Bank Group and in the framework of the government e-transformation project, we developed the prerequisites and the constituent elements of an electronic service. These are common elements that all public services have, that mainly all information systems have as functionalities or requirements, and that now serve as building blocks for information system development and delivery. In this way, the developed e-government ecosystem, this number of available platforms and microservices which perform functionalities that are typical to electronic services, such as strong authentication, signing, payments, data exchange, notification, delivery, made the development of electronic services more feasible, as now the service provider has no need to develop separate modules for each information system. Instead, he basically can direct his effort and resources only to the particular business need, to the particular process related to the service delivery model, because the rest of the functionalities are already available within eGov ecosystem. Having this ecosystem in place gives us now the opportunity to, as mentioned, to consolidate our efforts for the development process of electronic services. And what we are doing now is not to replicate the way we interact in a traditional manner in the service delivery provision. We are trying first to rethink, simplify, re-engineer the service, and only after that to apply the technology and the developed building blocks to have the services, electronic services in place. The main challenge now is to achieve that goal that already expired in 2020, yes, to have all public services available online. This still is a challenge, but we are trying to mitigate the risks by offering all, from the central level, all is needed for the service provider in order to develop the electronic services that would be more accessible, that would be more user-friendly, that would be available including from a mobile application, and will help us boost the remote interaction and a more qualitative interaction with our citizens. Well, thank you. I won't take any more time. And
thank you, Olga. Thank you, Olga, and I hope you can join the discussion also. Okay, now let's move from Moldova to Georgia. And Davit Nadirashvili, you are heading the Digital Governance Agency in Georgia. And Georgia has done also during last decade a lot of remarkable steps to digitalize the society and country and especially public services. So what is the situation today, and what about your thinking for future?
Добрый день. Что касается госуслуг, в Грузии очень хорошо развиты электронные госуслуги и услуги с использованием одного окна, так называемые. Мы сейчас переосмысливаем свои услуги. Мы пошли по... Первый метод был перевести все госуслуги на электронный вариант и пройти все госуслуги как электронные. Но у этого процесса есть очень плохая вторая часть, это называется слишком большое количество госуслуг. Сейчас мы переосмыслили эту проблему и сейчас работаем, чтобы госуслуги были ориентированы не на количество, а на качество. Тем самым сейчас идет работа в основном на улучшение качества этих сервисов и автоматизации сервисов. Одно из наиболее ясных, где можно это все хорошо увидеть, это умные контракты. Контракты, которые можно будет сделать без участия людей. То есть все контракты можно будет прямо с помощью электронных компонентов продавцы и покупатели смогут сами проводить, и с помощью финансовых институтов все это будет регистрироваться в автоматическом порядке. Это называется умный контракт, на котором мы сейчас работаем. Также работаем над мобильными аппликациями и электронной подписью в мобильном виде, что также даст нам возможность более, чтобы наши жители более лучше смогли управляться с этими электронными сервисами. В основном это те большие дела, которыми мы сейчас занимаемся в Грузии. В сфере цифровом, как называется?
Правительство.
Цифровом правительства и в сфере все электронных сервисов.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So now let's move to Anastasia. Anastasia, you are, as mentioned already, co-founder of and CIO of Restate Foundation. What do you mean by Restate?
Sure, thanks, Hannes. I'll happily explain what our organization does, but I'd like to mention that this is my comeback from, have not been in the region for a couple of years. I used to be head of Eurasia at the World Economic Forum, so I know this region quite well, and I love it, and I'm very happy to see how it develops. After moving from the World Economic Forum a couple of years ago, I have founded with several co-founders the Restate Foundation. We set quite an ambitious task in front of ourselves. We're looking into reimagining governance as it currently stands. We believe the governments can be better fit to respond to the needs of the citizens. We think that governance could use technology more to respond to those needs. And we think that at large, governance could be more decentralized, inclusive, participatory, enabled by technology, but importantly, human-centric. For that, we do several things. We do research, understanding how these things could happen on the theory level, what the best practices are, what the emerging solutions could be. We do technology exploration, where we try to discover those models of governance that are just being tested around the world, but that hold the promise of completely reimagining the field. And we're talking about things like quadratic voting, for example, a new way of voting which shows the nuance of people's preferences as opposed to just saying, I vote for candidate A or candidate B. We look into things that are blockchain-driven, but yet accessible to people in the country. So we look at algorithmic governance, AI-driven solutions. We look at the variety of solutions that could be the future of governance several years from now. But not to be detaching too much from the realities of today, we also look into which services and which approaches to governance could help us get there in several years. And so we are quite obsessed with human-centric governance and human-centric, citizen-centric services. So today I'd like to introduce this subject and speak a little bit about that. As we see a lot of countries in Central Asia, Eurasia at large, designing public services, we keep recommending using a very human-centric approach and also participatory and deliberative approaches. In our fast-changing world, the needs of society change very fast, and governments must increasingly put human beings in the center of decision-making. Government employees, citizens, businesses are all customers of the government. And they expect reliable, seamless, on-demand services, no matter if they're ordering from a retailer online or they're applying for a federal or state medical assistance. Governments should help people feel safe, secure, and respected as they receive these services, and currently it's not always the case. Recently, there was a study in the US where only 38% of people said that they feel appreciated and valued as customers when they get online services from the governments. And we already discussed this. This is quite a high number if we think about what the numbers could be in other countries. Of course, in the public sector, competition does not exist in the similar way that it does in private sector. However, people still make choices as residents, as taxpayers, as employees, and in order for governments to serve citizens' needs, they have to focus on digitizing the experiences and making it possible in the equitable way. Currently, most public services are very government-centric. They are designed to solve internal authorities' issues, often neglecting the needs of the public. But we know that the best companies in the world are absolutely customer-obsessed. So we recommend to take the same approach when it comes to public services. Governments tend to believe that they have the monopoly of public services. However, if they continue to keep this mentality, they might lose their stance as a defining factor when it comes to equity, sustainability, and citizenship. So the governments can be losing their standing because the private sector is becoming way more agile. Governments, importantly, are accountable for society at large, whereas other stakeholders are accountable for a subset of society. And it's critical because governments can help mold the values and the human lives and the environments in which we're living in. So shaping our moral compass by the way it introduces certain philosophies is also very important. This is why human-centric approach should be at the core of the matter. Audrey Tang, the digital minister of Taiwan, Taiwan is famous as a groundbreaking innovator of human-centric public services, says that social innovation is the idea that is everybody's business and is done with everybody's help. So around the world, we're collecting best practices where people are invited to participate in designing the governance services from the get-go. Right now in the world, there are more than 500 places on different levels from city to state where governments are using technology to crowdsource policy. For example, in countries like Iceland and South Africa, the constitutions were crowdsourced by citizens. In Europe, especially in France and Spain, participatory budgeting is highly popular. And also participatory budgeting is very well developed in Latin America. Taiwan, like I said, is one of the best examples of such things. They have the participation officer who is in charge of meeting with citizens day in and day out to not only get their feedback on existing solutions, but also get their new ideas. And their conversion rate is as high as 45%. 45% of solutions that are offered by citizens are being implemented in policy. They also have an interesting innovation that's called Gov G0V, which is an interesting thing when you go to any governmental website and you replace the O in .gov to the 0. You get to an alternative URL where you can fork the governmental technologies and you can play with the code to see if it could be developed in the brand new way. And oftentimes it is so well done that government does not have any other choice but to adopt it. This is the next level of citizen participation where it's really the act of co-creation. And of course there are many other more standard, more classic solutions in Europe where people are invited to participate in policy either by deliberation where they express their desire to do that, or by lottery. citizen lotteries in Scotland are quite popular, where it's a random selection of diverse groups of people who come together to create policies. And usually the efficiency of policies years after proves to be quite productive and quite efficient. I have many examples in store, but I think this will be enough for introduction, but happy to share, if anything, because we believe it's such an important tool.
Thank you very much, Anastasia. And I think you give us a good kick for the discussion also, because my first question, what is going to Oleg, Pekos, is, and also others, that how you actually involved like users or stakeholders, or however you call it, to the design of public services, what you deliver online. Is there some good samples or methodologies, or you just know everything already in your office and they must use it just? Oleg, maybe you start.
Конечно же, перед внедрением любой государственной услуги очень важно провести BPR этой услуги, потому что просто перевести ее с бумажного вида на электронный этого недостаточно. Есть лишние шаги, особенно по авторизации, по идентификации человека и много-много разных форм, которые необходимо заполнять. С прошлого года у нас запрещено запрашивать более 70 видов справок. Это уже большая победа. Тем самым, после того, как это законодательно запретили, государственные органы вынуждены подключаться к межведомственной интеграционной платформе и в автоматическом режиме получать всю эту информацию. То есть вы предоставляете, если это ID-карта с QR-кодом, либо PIN-FL свой, после чего все данные всех необходимых возможных анкет, они заполняются автоматически, с вашего разрешения, само собой. Но это не нужно делать вручную. Вот этот шаг очень важный. И при изучении и проведении BPR любой государственной услуги мы зачастую понимаем, что 3 или 4 порой шага, они лишние. Возможно, исторически так сложилось, что когда-то это было нужно. Возможно, но факт, что сейчас это не нужно. И мы уже перешли к тому, что на сегодняшний день больше 370 госуслуг. И мы уже заново, те услуги, которые уже был проведен BPR, но были внедрены, к примеру, 2 года назад, мы заново проходим BPR этих услуг и автоматизируем, убираем лишние шаги. И, конечно же, большой шаг тоже и помощь нам предоставила возможность Face ID-идентификации, в том числе и Mobile ID-идентификации, которую мы запустили на электронном правительстве в этом году. То есть в явочном порядке гражданину ни при каких обстоятельствах уже идти не нужно. Мы сравниваем, очень хорошая есть возможность. С 2013 года все граждане Республики Узбекистан получали уже биометрические паспорта, и эта биометрия у нас есть. Тем самым никуда ходить не нужно, мы их идентифицируем, и человек получает просто удобную услугу.
Thank you. What about in Georgia, Davit? I know Georgians are very talkative and they always want to visit office and see someone, you know, and talk to each other. But how they are going online, and what are the methodologies you are using to push them online, but also like make the services online in the way what people actually want?
Господин Олег очень правильно сказал, те же проблемы и в Грузии, конечно. Мы также, после того, как построили дом юстиции, который не цифровой, а это был принцип одного окна, и люди уже привыкли на где-то 85% госуслуг брать в одном месте. В этом же одном месте мы сейчас пытаемся их научить брать все это в электронном виде. Там же установлены компьютеры, на которых они могут эти услуги взять электронно. Что касается идентификации и аутентификации, аутентификация single sign-on принцип, который мы сейчас внедряем, даст нам возможность, чтобы один раз человек, зарегистрировавший на госуслугах, смог бы получить все эти госуслуги и заново ему не потребовались регистрации. Все те документы, которые он может брать электронно, не приходя и пересылать, он просто физически может это уже делать. Но уже приходится сейчас думать об автоматизации, чтобы вместо того, чтобы вместо человека уже интеллектуально компьютер сам смог все действия сделать вместо человека.
Спасибо. Thank you, David. Olga, I know that in Moldova also, like many people are living outside of the cities, and always this gap between city people and rural people, also in digital services, somehow exist in most of the countries, because usually people who are living in countryside, they have less resources, their internet connectivity is not that good. Even in Estonia, I live in countryside, my internet connection is much more expensive and much more worse rather than in my city apartment. So this is, I cannot say it's normal, but it's the reality just. So what you do in Moldova also to bring more people who are more vulnerable or having less access to the resources, how to bring them to the digital services and digital era and digital governance in very broad sense?
Yeah, thank you, Hannes, for this question. And answering to it, I will start with one thing. In 2018, after the previous project, e-government transformation project, when we developed the e-gov ecosystem, we started using these building blocks for the modernization of governmental services. And the main goal of these activities, of this project, is to ensure, first, a better quality of public services, but also to increase the accessibility of public services, also reducing the administrative burden that is related to service provision. One of the strategies to increase the accessibility of public services is to make them available online, but to digitize the public services as they are and as the service providers were used to organize them did not fit our objective to ensure a better and a higher quality of public services. And as many other countries in the post-Soviet space, we have a rich legacy and problems, and in many cases the services were provided not based on some rules or regulations, but just on some common practices, traditions, and so on and so forth. That is why in the framework of this project, we established a new concept of modernization, first through re-engineering and only after this through digitization. And this modernization process is composed of actually 4 phases: the rationalization phase, the re-engineering phase, the digitization, and the delivery, the most important one, yeah, that is dedicated to diversify the delivery channels, to deliver central services locally, and to have implemented a customer-centered delivery model with approved quality and delivery standards and continuous improvement. Our re-engineering methodology that was put in place and that we are now following states some important principles in order to produce these radical changes and to increase the efficiency of the services, such like citizen centricity, minimum documents, extensive use of IT, omnichannelity in the omnichannel delivery process. I will not stop too much here because the question was how we ensured the access to public services, but one of the problems that we were also facing in ensuring the access to public services was the access to central services that are not available in the at the local level. So. And another challenge is that, for example, according to our law on public services, yes, all public services must be available digital by default and digital first. But on one hand, we are fully aware that there will always be people and citizens that will prefer to either be assisted by someone because they lack digital competences, either they simply prefer to go to the service provider and or to another place to request the service, meaning they want this physical interaction. In Moldova, we have both cases. In this regard, we introduced a concept of unified centers for public service delivery. We call them COOPs, that are an alternative public service delivery channel through which the front office segment of the service is taken over by a third-party institution, and in our case is the local public authority. The back office is still provided by the service providers. We piloted this concept of COOPs in 17 localities in rural areas that are removed from the main regional centers where central service providers are located. And the logic behind the COOPs is that the specialists that are working there are assisting the citizens in accessing electronic public services. They are guiding them how to use e-gov services and other digital tools. But in the same time, the COOPs play a role of a hub within these rural communities for keeping the population informed and skilled, and in this way comfortable in using electronic services.
Thank you.
We entered now, just one more comment. We entered now phase 2 of these activities related to COOPs. So we are targeting rolling out such centers in other 18 localities. We have a good partnership with local public authorities and a vivid interest from them for diversifying the spectrum of services, but also to support their community, their citizens, in being more involved in all that means digital culture and helping them to develop their digital skills.
Thank you, Olga.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shakhboz, you mentioned in your introduction the relations between ICT and climate change. And I'd like to hear more about it, because if to give you some hints, there is like two views on it. First of all, if you are discussing about the public service delivery, if you are doing it online, it's probably we are saving a lot of nature and energy, and we are friendly to climate because people do not need to travel to the cities to apply and then pick it up. We made a calculation in my organization, E-Governance Academy, that it's usually taking like 3 full working days to come to office to apply and go back home if you are in a remote village, and then you need to come back to pick up the document and return home. And sometimes even you need 3 visits, because first time you apply, second time you come and they say, we had a small mistake, but we need to improve first, and then you can come back. Another view is that all those social media, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, people are wasting an endless number of energy by just using them. And actually the harm to the nature is tremendous, either it's invisible, because just a couple of billion people are using TikTok simultaneously globally. What is your point of view on it?
Thank you, Janis. Good question indeed. As a citizen of Uzbekistan, I'm really enjoying all e-governance services which were just mentioned by Oleg in his speech, and that really makes your task easy. I mean, as a citizen, you have to be, and I'm really proud of that, of these latest changes. This is one thing, and second, I would say, again, after maybe I'm repeating myself, that there should be, once this agenda, digitalization agenda, is being driven by a Ministry of ICT and Innovation Development Ministry, we have also some other ministries, if they are taking forward this agenda, I think that should be cross-government, yeah? So all government agencies have to be able to, also have to have a kind of will to shift to e-governance things. So For example, if I get, I'm a good driver, but I sometimes get fined from the Minister of Internal Affairs, and I absolutely disagree with the decision that I have to pay that fine, yeah, the amount of money, and they give a kind of a telephone number, and I call this hours and hours, and they never pick up. Or whenever they pick up, they say just come to the office, and we will figure out this. I mean, this is not a case, yeah. It's not so. The agenda being driven by ICT perhaps is not working across all. And also, this is across government agencies, also across regions of Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan is not only about Tashkent or Samarkand. Yeah, for example, according to our research, around 45% of Uzbek populations, if you have 35 million, so around 45% of population is digitally disconnected. In how to solve this from e-government's perspective, this could be very interesting. Regarding climate change, it's very important. So. Application of all e-government services, public policy services, and also all digitalization tools have to be applied and employed massively also by another important government agency, which is Hydromet. In informing population, sometimes people do not know what weather is like tomorrow or what type of days. And lately I noticed that they are immediately announcing, so it's just a windstorm or a dust storm is coming to Tashkent or to other regions. So they publicly announce that and ask people to stay at home, not to go out, or with certain recommendations. And I think from this perspective, this would be really great to use, again, e-governance in digitalize the services of Hydromet, for example. Yeah? And if you look much deeper into this fact that we have the biggest human-driven environmental catastrophe, which is RLC. It has desiccated, it has disappeared. 40 years ago, it was one of the biggest lakes in the world. So, and now there's no water there. And this is very human-driven issue. And many people are now researching what to do, how to do, and it's very climate-related and water security-related issue. So perhaps we could apply many digital tools and digital solutions, tech solutions, in bringing or in solving some issues related to RLC catastrophe, or the area where the water is really salty and air quality is really low. For example, in CAREC, Pakistan, and Khorizm, Bukhara. I come from Bukhara, so I'm pretty much aware of what is happening there and how to solve this. I mean, if public policy issues could draw more attention to these aspects of the issues as well, so that we could perhaps reap more fruits of digitalization, and we could see the tangible results of this e-governance and digitalization overall. Digitalization is much beyond than IT, computer, and outsourcing and others, yeah? But much more about societal issues that we have to solve. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Shakhboz. Very much agree. My last question goes to Anastasia. We heard marvelous samples about citizen engagement and stakeholders engagement, but what I see globally, it's not the issue of Estonia or Uzbekistan or any other country, that the bottleneck are not the people. People are willing to participate, but the bottleneck is somewhere else. So the decision makers often do not want to hear what citizens are saying and what they actually want, because they already know. So will your tools, what you are planning to do, or policies what you are planning to assist governments, will address also those issues that decision makers actually should understand the value of engagement of citizens and participation, and after maybe things are going faster globally.
You're right, Hannes, it is a big concern. And the experience shows that you cannot make someone want something until they really want it. But one way of showing them that they might want something would be to offer to them just to try it out. And so, part of what we do in Restate Foundation, we're releasing the Future of Governance Toolkit in March of next year at the World Government Summit in Dubai. And the next step for it would be to, it's a living library of best participatory governance practices that could be easily contextualized to any context in the world, be it, China or Estonia or Uzbekistan or Japan or Uganda. All of them are quite plug and play in the sense that you can, easily test them out and you can easily contextualize them. So we already have requests from governments that we knew would want something like that, and Estonia is actually one of them. But we also want to start working with countries who just haven't had a chance to taste participatory governance, and there are some strategies of doing that. At the same time, citizens are becoming more active because citizens get to travel a lot around the world right now, and so they could compare how public services are being offered elsewhere and what tools there exist for people to take part in deliberations. So more often than not, people will have a general sense of what is possible and they would want to bring it home, especially if they get foreign education, then bring it home. So they have specific demands at home, and I think this will be also driving certain levels of willingness to participate more. Of course, it's not a straightforward process, and it will not take just a year or two, but importantly, we have departed, so hopefully the journey will be bright.
Thank you very much, Anastasia. Thank you very much. We need to wrap up. Our time is over. As being Estonian, I'm trying always to be punctual. But I'd like very much to thank Olga, Anastasia, Shakhboz, Davit, and Oleg for this great discussion, and I want to thank also strategies to bringing people together. And we see a remarkable process in all Eurasian region. And we hope to continue this discussion next year, somewhere in the region.
Thank you too, Hannes. Thank you for
moderating. Thank you very much, and have a nice day. Thank you very much.
Thank you.